Why Star Trek Picard killing a beloved Borg character was a big mistake. Star Trek Picard killing off Hugh, Jonathan Del Arco, was a big mistake. Introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 23, Borg, Hugh was a former Borg drone who regained his individuality with the help of the crew of the USS Enterprise D. Hugh returned in the Star Trek The Next Generation two-parter, Descent, as part of a collective of Borg led by Brent Spiner. Hugh's comeback in Star Trek Picard Season 1 was a pleasant surprise, but his abrupt death was a big disappointment. The Borg-centric Star Trek Picard Season 1 reintroduced Hugh as the administrator of the Borg Reclamation Project. Aboard a derelict Borg cube controlled by Romulans and renamed the Artifact, Hugh worked to help other Borg drones regain their sense of self. Unfortunately, Hugh was caught in the Romulan Zhat Vash's plot to learn the location of the Synthetics' homeworld of Coppelius from Dr. Soji Asha Issa Briones, who was herself a next-generation android. Hugh was murdered by the Romulan Zhat Vash agent Nerissa Peyton List soon after his heartwarming reunion with Admiral Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart. Jonathan Del Arco explains why Star Trek Picard killing Hugh Borg was a big mistake. In an interview with Trek Movie, Jonathan Del Arco delved into his surprise return as Hugh in Star Trek Picard Season 1 and his feelings on Hugh's shocking and abrupt death. While Del Arco was glad to reprise Hugh, he explained how little Picard's writers gave him in terms of details about what happened to Hugh since Star Trek The Next Generation. Jonathan also shares his regrets about which Picard actors he didn't have a chance to work with. Read Del Arco's quote below. Hugh and Admiral Picard seeing each other again and sharing a hug, a moment Jonathan Del Arco says he improvised on set with Patrick Stewart, was a highlight of Star Trek Picard Season 1. Hugh also shared scenes with Picard's new characters like Soji and Elnor Evan Evagora. However, Star Trek The Next Generation fans, which includes Del Arco, were denied Picard referencing Hugh's friendship with Geordi or more insight about Hugh's friends from the USS Enterprise D. But this is due, in part, to Patrick Stewart's initial decree that Star Trek Picard not be a retread of TNG. Why Hugh not meeting Geordi in 7 of 9 was such a loss for Star Trek Picard LT. Commander Geordi LaForge, LeVar Burton, was Hugh's closest friend on Star Trek The Next Generation, and Jonathan Del Arco is right that Hugh not asking Picard about Geordi feels like a glaring omission. In Star Trek Picard's defense, however, at that early point in the series, producers did not envision the cast of Star Trek The Next Generation reuniting in Picard Season 3. Still, killing off Hugh denied audiences and the actors a chance to see Hugh reunite with his friends on the USS Enterprise D, especially since Picard Season 3 was the TNG crew's final battle and victory over the Borg. Jonathan Del Arco also didn't get to share scenes with Jeri Ryan's 7 of 9 in Star Trek Picard Season 1. Despite Jean-Luc, Seven, and Hugh, 3 of Star Trek's most prominent former Borg characters, all in the same season of Star Trek Picard, they weren't all together on screen. Seven not meeting Hugh at all means audiences lost out on what could have been a cool Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Voyager crossover. Meanwhile, Jeri Ryan and Jonathan Del Arco are also close friends in real life, but they were unable to act together in Star Trek Picard. When Star Trek Picard was announced, it sparked excitement among Star Trek fans who hoped for a thoughtful continuation of the universe's legacy. One of the more intriguing aspects of Star Trek Picard was its return to some of the most complex and compelling characters from Star Trek The Next Generation TNG, particularly the iconic Borg, a species that had haunted Jean-Luc Picard for decades. The decision to reintroduce the fan-favorite character Hugh, the liberated Borg drone, was initially met with excitement. But that enthusiasm quickly turned into shock and disappointment when Hugh was abruptly killed off in the show's first season. Hugh's death felt like a significant misstep, a missed opportunity to explore rich storytelling possibilities. Here are several reasons why killing off Hugh in Star Trek Picard was a big mistake. 1. The legacy of Hugh, a symbol of hope and redemption. Hugh first appeared in Star Trek The Next Generation episode Borg, 1992, where he was introduced as a lone Borg drone separated from the collective. His time spent with the crew of the Enterprise fundamentally changed him, allowing him to develop an individual sense of self, something almost unheard of in the Borg. This story arc became one of the most emotionally impactful episodes in TNG, as Hugh's presence forced Captain Picard to reconsider his feelings about the Borg. Hugh represented hope in a universe often defined by rigid morality and clear boundaries between good and evil. He was a symbol of redemption, showing that even the most terrifying of enemies could find humanity. His character arc brought depth to the Borg, moving them beyond being mindless drones and into a more nuanced portrayal of individuality and the possibility of transformation. When Hugh reappeared in Star Trek Picard, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to revisit those themes on a grander scale. Hugh, now a leader among liberated Borg, offered hope not only to other drones, but also to a Federation still grappling with its complex relationship to the Borg. His survival and leadership would have allowed Picard to explore these ideas even further, deepening the moral questions that made TNG so compelling. Killing Hugh, however, felt like an abandonment of that rich legacy. His death wasn't just the loss of a character, it was the loss of the philosophical depth and thematic continuity he embodied. 2. A missed opportunity for character development in Star Trek Picard. The decision to bring Hugh back seemed like an exciting opportunity to explore how his character had evolved over the years. Given that Picard had his own complex relationship with the Borg as Locutus, a former drone, it was fascinating to imagine the ways Hugh and Picard could collaborate or reflect on their shared history. Hugh's experience of trying to reintegrate former Borg drones into society, helping them rediscover their individuality, was a mirror of Picard's journey of healing from his own traumatic assimilation. Hugh's potential role as a bridge between Picard and other liberated Borg could have brought a much-needed emotional and philosophical weight to the story. His death, however, felt rushed and lacked emotional payoff. It didn't offer the audience a chance to fully appreciate how Hugh's experiences had shaped him. Instead, his arc was cut short before it had the chance to flourish. The series could have explored Hugh's journey further, showing the difficulties of rebuilding a post-Borg life, the political challenges he faced, or even his own struggles with identity. Hugh's death robbed the show the chance to give viewers a more intricate exploration of Borg society and how it might evolve. Instead, the killing seemed more like a plot device to move other characters forward, which reduced Hugh's significance in the overall narrative. 3. Emotional impact and audience reaction. One of the most criticized aspects of Hugh's death was the emotional void it left behind. Fans had waited decades to see Hugh again, and when he finally appeared, they were eager to see how his life had unfolded. His untimely death in Picard felt like a betrayal of the emotional connection many fans had developed with the character over the years. In contrast to other impactful deaths in Star Trek history, like Spock's in The Wrath of Khan or Data's in Nemesis, Hugh's death felt hollow. Those other moments were given the proper time to breathe, allowing characters and the audience to process the loss. Hugh's death, on the other hand, felt sudden, lacking the weight it deserved for such a beloved character. Not only was it abrupt, but it also seemed to serve more as a plot mechanism to heighten the stakes for other characters, rather than a genuine narrative conclusion for Hugh. His death didn't feel like a natural progression of his story, and as a result, it fell flat. Fans who had grown attached to Hugh over the years were left unsatisfied and questioning why such an important character was handled with so little care. 4. Breaking away from Star Trek's optimistic tone, Star Trek has long been known for its optimistic vision of the future, a future where differences are reconciled,